Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready in-depth tour of Google Sheets. And now I'd like to tell you about the Work Ready program. Work Ready started in December of 2020 with the purpose of helping people get a job, improve their work situation, and plan a more sustainable career path. And we're doing that in two ways. One is we're lending out hotspots and laptops out of 20, and soon to be 27 library locations for 6-week periods. So if you don't have the internet, if you don't have a laptop, can't do skills training, can't apply for jobs, we've got you covered. You can check out a laptop, check out a hotspot, and you are covered when it comes to internet access. And the second way that Work Ready is helping folks get jobs is by providing virtual events just like this one. We've had events on all the basics, cover letters, resumes, interviews. We've done deep dives into careers and career planning. And today we're doing a program on Google Sheets, which has been a much requested program. Now you can see over 50 of our past Work Ready events at our YouTube channel and on the Work and Career playlist. I'm going to post the link to that in the chat, and I'll also put that in the follow-up email. There we go. So that you can view our programs after the fact. If you need to leave early, if you want to review, which is probably going to be useful for this program today. And if you want to share with others, if you think other people would benefit from learning more about cover letters, resumes, interviews, Google Sheets, you could always share our YouTube videos, and that'll be shared with you via link in an email either later this week or early next week when the video gets posted. And the Work Ready program is made possible due to funds provided by the American Rescue Plan. And now, before we get going with today's event, I also want to let you know about next week's event, Work Ready Spotlight on Media Careers. We're going to be talking with Anisha Dubois, who is a writer, a producer, a voiceover actor, and she's going to be sharing with you how it is to work in each of those environments in a Spotlight on Media Careers. That's going to be next Tuesday, May 9th at 11 a.m. and promises to be a great program. We've had Anisha on before, and she is fantastic at communicating her experiences and getting you pumped up for your experiences. And now, if you're interested in learning more about programs at the library beyond Work Ready, you can do that by going to our website, lacountylibrary.org. And on the top right-hand side, we have a little events box. Click that box, and you get all of our events in person, virtual, for all ages. Of course, all of them are free, just like this event here. And if you're interested in learning more about virtual events, then you can just hover over that box and then you'll get a little drop down. It says virtual program. You click on that, you get just the Zoom events also, all ages, various topics, and free. And today's program is Work Ready in-depth tour of Google Sheets. And I am your presenter. Again, my name is Ole Kagan. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for LA County Library and a spreadsheet enthusiast. We've had our post-event surveys that we've been doing after every Work Ready event for quite a long time. And one of the things that we've intended to cover and haven't had the chance to yet is this very thing where people ask us, can you do more on spreadsheet software? A little while ago, I did a program on productivity software. I covered a whole bunch, and people said, well, why don't you just spend an hour doing one just to give us more? And so that's what I'm doing here today. I've been an Excel user for quite a long time, and I'm an Excel enthusiast and a spreadsheet lover. And today I want to talk about Google Sheets because Google Sheets is free, available to anyone. So even if you don't have access to Microsoft Office, you can still use Google Sheets. All that Google Sheets requires is a free Google account. So after you finish with watching this program, you can, if you already have a Google account, I'll show you how to get to Google Sheets. And if you don't, you can make one and get on Google Sheets and start practicing right away. Google Sheets is a program that's used more and more in various offices and other settings. And many people use Google Sheets for their own personal organization, to-do lists. I use it for my own personal finance and other kind of planning. People can plan camping trips or other kind of things using Google Sheets just because it gives you so many options with what you can do. It's a fairly powerful piece of software, even though when you initially look at it, it's not that complicated. Anybody can get started using it if you have basic computer skills. So what I wanted to ask, speaking of basic computer skills, is I wanted to know who our audience is today. Who are you in terms of your spreadsheet skills? Are you a beginner user of spreadsheets, intermediate or advanced? Now, I have a list of things that I'm going to cover. I'm going to take you through Google Sheets from the top of the window to the bottom and a whole bunch of stuff in between. But I wanted to know, if we've got a lot of people who are intermediate or advanced here, I can also cover some of the more advanced stuff while, of course, treating our beginners like they belong here, because you do. So I'm getting some intermediate, I'm getting some beginners. We have an experienced user. So if you're an experienced user, you might be able to teach me a few things. So if you see something that I'm doing, you have suggestions, by all means, put those in. So I'm getting a lot of beginner and intermediate. Okay. Good. I feel like if you're an advanced user, so I see advanced Excel, I only use Google Sheets if it is preferred. Yeah, I've mostly been using Excel throughout my career, and I've taken LinkedIn classes on Excel and sort of upgraded my own skills on it deliberately and practiced with Excel. And I only recently started using Google Sheets in earnest, probably maybe 3 or 4 months ago, where I started really heavily using it for my own personal use. And it's different than Excel. It has a lot of similar features, but it's not the same. So I'm getting a lot of, people, oh, Lotus 1, 2, 3. Okay, going back there. Uh, Beginner, I see. Intimidated with formatting and formulas. Okay, so we're going to be talking a lot about formulas, or at least formatting today. We're going to talk a little bit about formulas. We'll get you started there. Google Sheets and LibreOffice. Thumbs up for LibreOffice, that this is a free and open source alternative to Microsoft Office, and it has all of the different aspects, including a piece of spreadsheet software. All right. So thank you all for your answers. And now let's get into Google Sheets. And we're going to do a lot of the beginner and intermediate part here. And then towards the end, we'll get into some of the more slightly advanced stuff, even though I would say that with Google Sheets, even a beginner can move into advanced territory pretty quickly. Because unlike with Excel, where there's just an overwhelming amount of features, and they're great, but there's a lot. With Google Sheets, it's a lot more manageable in terms of the different features that are out there and how to use them kind of at a basic but very useful and practical level. So let me go ahead. I'm seeing in the Q&A. Some people are responding to the Q&A as well. All right. I'm going to remove some of those Q&A so that when we get questions, I won't have to scroll past. All right. Yeah, somebody mentioned analysts with business analysts. Yeah, I was going to say that project management, Excel and Sheets are pretty good for project management, at least when projects aren't gigantic. Okay, let us get into Google Sheets. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm using the Brave browser today. And of course, if you don't know, Google Sheets is browser-based. So it's on the internet. You can use it if you're not connected to the internet, and it does have a way for you to save the files onto your computer so you can access them offline. But most people use Google Sheets as browser-based software. And what that means is that it also allows for sharing. So Google Sheets, one of the great features of it is that it allows you to work collaboratively with others. So what I'm doing here is I'm typing drive.google.com, and that'll take us into Google Drive. So I'm already logged in. If you're not logged in, you would ordinarily have to be logged in here. So this is Google Drive. This is like the central hub of the Google workspace or all of the Google productivity software. And you can see on the top left-hand side of my screen, and just let me know if you're able to see, when I'm moving my mouse. I know sometimes with the zoom, it's better if we zoom in a little bit. So if I need to zoom in, I'm happy to do that. So on the top left-hand side, there's new, and see you have all of these options. You can do Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Forms, and even more of these different options of Google applications that you can use with your Google account. And we're going to do Google Sheets. So here's that. And I have already started a document for us. So the way that we get to the document is we find it over here down below. So we've got suggested. So these are the ones that are used most frequently. This is an account that I don't use it very often. So I only have one document here, and Google had left a getting started document here. So it's personal ledger. This is a document that I created as a demonstration piece for our presentation today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click personal ledger, and it's going to open us up into Google Sheets. And so here is what Google Sheets looks like when you open it on pretty much any browser. And any browser, that's any modern browser, you'll be able to use Google Sheets. So here is what we will see. And I'm going to do some drawing on the screen, and then I'll erase that drawing later, but that way we can direct our attention to where we need to be. So we're going to break down this screen into several parts, and I'm going to go through each of these parts in depth. And then we're going to start actually doing something using the spreadsheet software. And it's going to be a personal ledger, just spending and money going in, money going out. So there's a few parts of this screen that you might notice. I'm going to start to highlight the screen here. I'm just going to bring up my little drawing pencil here. So there's the top part of the screen here, this area here. It's broken up by this part here and the one on the side over here. And then the file menu, which is down below. These are all these options: file, edit, view, insert, format. And then we've got this part over here, which is the toolbar. I call it the quick access toolbar because it has what you see over here, all of these icons here. These are all within these menu options, but sometimes it's just faster to have them all up here if you use them frequently. Then you have the formula bar, just get a little hard to see because it's all white. That's this right here. It stretches this whole way if you want to write a long formula. So you got the formula bar, that's where you input formulas. That's one place where you can input formulas. Then we have the spreadsheet area, like this part here, the main part. This is where all the magic happens. Down below is our sheets. We can have different, it's called Google Sheets. You can have a variety of sheets. So a variety of like spreadsheet areas in one workbook. And then we have this icon here, and that's called Explore. And I'll show you how that works later. So what you'll figure out quickly as you use Google Sheets is that there are typically numerous ways to do anything. You can access items through the menu. You can access items through the quick access toolbar here, and most of the options have keyboard shortcuts. Control K if you want to create a link within, you can do Control K, Control Alt M. And so you'll see once you use options very frequently, you'll memorize their keyboard shortcuts and you'll be able to use them quickly. So somebody mentioned in the chat, it looks like Excel. Indeed, it does. And that's a good starting point. So for people who use Excel, you'll be instantly familiar with many of the features and the look of Google Sheets. But Google Sheets is not exactly like Excel. And so if you're used to something like creating tables in in Excel, where you press Control T on a range of data and it creates a table for you, that doesn't exist in Google Sheets. And that's just one of the differences in the kind of language, the interface language of Google Sheets and Excel. And as you use Excel, and as I've experienced moving back and forth between Sheets and Excel, is there some important and interesting differences. As a bigger theme, I would say that Sheets is simpler than Excel, and I like that. We had a question, does Google Sheets operate the same in Apple? Yes, it does, because it's all within the browser. So it looks exactly the same, whether you're using Apple, PC, or Linux. I use Linux at home, which is a different operating system. And my Google Sheets looks the same because I also use the Brave browser. So it looks exactly like this. Okay, so let's start going through what we have here. Now, what we have all the way on the top left-hand side is the Sheets home. So if this green icon, this is the Sheets icon. If I click it, it'll take me back to Sheets home. And that's the landing page for Microsoft Sheets. So this is like Google Drive, but specific to Sheets. So if you know you're going to be using a Sheets document, then you can go straight to sheets.google.com and it'll take you to this screen. So convenient for me because my personal ledger is already here at the very top. But if you're using Google Drive a lot and using a lot of different documents, your Sheets document might get lost somewhere on the bottom, slightly more difficult to find. All right, so I'm going to get back into this. It's just a single click. You don't have to double click it. The single click gets you into here, and we're back at the personal ledger document. You can change the name of the document. Go up here, you just simply click once up on the name, and I'm going to change this to Skeeter's personal ledger because we have a personal ledger in sheet 2, and I'm just going to imagine that the person whose ledger it is named Skeeter. Here we have a star. What the star does is essentially bookmarks this document in your Google Drive, so it's easier to access. So I mentioned earlier that if you use Google Drive a lot, some of your documents start to move to the bottom and kind of get lost in among all of the other files. If you put a star on this, it'll keep it up and it'll be easier to find. This icon lets you move your document within Google Drive. And I only have just 2 files, so I have nowhere to move it. But if I wanted to create a folder, I can create a folder and say personal finance. This is my personal finance folder. Create that, and I'm going to move Skeeter's personal ledger into the personal finance folder. So I might put other things in that folder like receipts and other various financial documents like retirement papers. I might scan them and put them into that personal finance folder. And so if I'm looking for personal finance stuff, it'll be easy to find because it's all there. So as you can see, nothing happened to this document when I moved it to the personal finance folder. If I click here, I could always move it. So it's within personal finance. I could always move it out back to the main directory and just click move here. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it in personal finance. There it is. This little cloud icon means that the document is saved. So all changes are saved to Drive. It means they're saved in the cloud. They're saved on Google servers. So you don't have to worry about saving them because Google keeps track. And one nice thing about Google Keep Track is that you have a revision history here too. So you can look at different versions of the file by going to File and scrolling down to Version History. And I've worked in this file quite a bit just to practice for this presentation. And so let's just quickly see the version history. It's going to open up here. And so I created it yesterday, and there's various versions of it that we can go back to and see the changes that I made. So there's, well, within this 11, so I was working on it last night. You can see all these different changes that I've made. We can go back to each of these changes and reverse them. But we're not going to do that right now. We're going to go to the back button, and we're going to keep going here, switched over to the other side. So now the last edit of this document was 38 minutes ago. And again, you click on that, you get the version history. That's over in this little clock with the arrow around it. The next 3 icons are all related to collaboration. So As I mentioned, one of the nice features of Google Sheets is that it allows you to collaborate with others. So if you're working on planning, I know somebody mentioned in the chat that they worked with a nonprofit and they all used Google Sheets. And that's a great feature of Google Sheets, is that it makes it very easy to work literally at the same time as somebody else on the same document. So if you might be on the phone with somebody and working on the document. So here is a comment history. So people can make comments on each of these cells and say, oh, this is the wrong formula, or this is the wrong date, or maybe we should be keeping track of this, etc. And all that comment history will be open if you click this little speech bubble. Here is join a call or present here. So this is if you want to have a video chat related to this document and you have another person that's already looking at it with you, you can essentially create a little hangout together. And share allows you to send this file to other people. Of course, it's not so much the file, it's the file on Google server, so that you'll be able to send a link to people. So if you would like to give people access, you can put their email information in here, and then you can send it to them. You can also copy a link. So when you copy a link, though, you have to have either shared it with them already, or you have to make the file accessible to anyone with a link. So under general access, I clicked restricted, and I can check anyone with a link. So then if I copy this link and send it to you or put it in the chat, you can all have it. So I'm going to do that right now. And if you want to join this document with me during this presentation, you can. And so you'll notice that I shared this with you as a viewer. So you'll be able to see the document, but you won't be able to edit it. Oh, somebody already joined. So as you can see, when people join, you can see little animals appear. So I don't know who everybody is, but I do see all these various animals. We've got a lot of people joining. So you guys can join as viewers. You can join as commenters, you can join as editors. So as I mentioned earlier, you have comments, so I can do comments. That's going to be up here. You can do editor, that means you can change the document. So right now you can just view it, you can't actually change it. So here we've got anonymous anteater, anonymous beaver, anonymous. This is what Google does when you don't have a Google account logged in. You can view documents as various anonymous animals, including anonymous Ifrit. I don't know what that is, but I might look it up later because that's a fantastic name for an animal. Okay, so we're all here together. And so let's move on to, so we've got this here, and then of course this is your Google account. You click here, you can go to your various account settings, unrelated to Google Sheets. Next, let's go into the file menu. So I'm not going to go through each of these. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of options here, and some of these I'm going to show you specifically, but I want to get through to some specific ones here. So first of all, if you want to get this document out of Google Sheets, you have a few ways to do that. You can email it. You can email this file to other people. It'll usually email them a link to the file, and they'll be able to go into it. Now, if they don't have a Google account, that might be a little bit more difficult. It gets a little complicated, but you'll usually have to just grant them access, and they'll come in as an anonymous anteater or anonymous elephant or something. You can also download this from Google servers as various types of files, including Microsoft Excel, Open Document, which is what we mentioned LibreOffice earlier. LibreOffice uses the open document format, and essentially they'll see exactly the same thing that you'll see, other than very specific features within Google Sheets like slicers and filters. You can download as a PDF, where people can just see the document, but they won't be able to actually do anything with it. You can download it as a web page. You can download it as a comma separated value.csv file. That's a very simple file that can be opened using a Microsoft Notepad. It's just text with different fields separated by commas, and then similar tab separated values where instead of commas, it'll be separated by tabs. You can rename the file, move the file. So we talked about you can move the file here. You can also move the file here. Version history we talked about. There's details and settings about the file. And of course, you can also just create a new file from here as well. Edit is kind of the usual options you get from most pieces of software. You can undo, redo, and you have keyboard shortcuts here, Control Z, Control Y. So if you make a mistake, if you type in something by accident here, this is a mistake. So I didn't really want to do that. So I'm going to go to Edit and go to Undo, and it'll just erase that. So if you make a goof, you can undo. I always press Control Z because Control and Z are so close together. You hold Control, press Z, and it undoes it. I don't usually like to go to an Edit and Undo, but you can if you want to. Cut and paste, the usual kind of stuff. Control C, Control V. So if you want to take a piece of information from one place, put it in another place, you can copy it from one place and paste it. Now, if you cut it, it's going to remove it from the first place and put it into the second place. Paste special is actually something that's really useful, particularly in spreadsheet software. I am a big user of values only, and this keyboard shortcut, just a little hint for you, little tip and trick. Control Shift V actually works in other software too. It pastes values only. So if you've got some kind of weird formatting that you copy from the internet or some other file, when you do Control Shift V, then it'll only paste the text. So let me give you an example. So if I have like, I'm just gonna put some numbers here, and then ABC. And I'm gonna make it bold. I'm gonna make the font bigger. This one I'm gonna make, 90. It's gonna be gigantic. And so I want to paste, I don't want this format, I just want to paste text. So I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna go Edit, Copy, and I'm gonna paste it here. And I don't want any of this format. Let's see if it works. I'm gonna Edit, Paste Special, Values Only. So you see, it pasted it just within using the default setting, which is font size 10 with whatever that I think Arial is the default font here. And I can change that if I want to. So if I pasted and I goofed up and I really wanted the whole thing, paste format only, or paste format, say paste values only is what we selected, paste format, it does nothing because there's no, now if I put in another document, another number here, it's going to be at least bold, not font 90 though. That's a problem. So paste special is really useful when you're moving a whole bunch of stuff around. I'm going to push Control Z a bunch of times and just get rid of all of this. So I'm undoing a whole bunch of stuff. And you can undo a whole bunch of stuff. It goes way back. So if you've goofed up a few times, you can keep going Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, or using the button up here, undo, undo, undo. So paste special, just remember that you can use that if you want to just use the values with no formulas, no formatting, no nothing, just the numbers. You can delete various rows, and I'll show you how to do that more. Find and replace is another useful and common feature in various software, and that is you find some piece of text or numbers in a document and you can replace them all. So if you have if my name Oleg was in a document and something changed and somebody else would have to take on the tasks that I do, but you didn't want to go through this giant spreadsheet and change and find all the Olegs and change them to Hector, then I would do find and replace. And in find, I would put Oleg and replace with Hector. And you can do all sheets, or you can do this sheet specifically. So if I have 2 sheets here, if I want to do all the sheets, if I had 10 sheets, then I can do all sheets. It would look in all 10 sheets for the name Oleg, or for these letters all together, and replace it with Hector. Now press done, it will replace all, and it would just automatically do that. Computers are great. I would recommend doing match case if you have capital letters. That way, if somebody wrote my name in lowercase, or it wasn't my name, or there was another Oleg that only used lowercase, then it wouldn't replace the capital O. You can also search within formulas, search within links. You've got various options with find and replace. I like it a lot. View shows you how to see. Some people hate grid lines. They remove the grid lines. Look at this. It's like a snowy tundra forest. It's just all snow here. No grid lines. So it's not barely even a spreadsheet. I like to have grid lines, at least initially, because they give my mind structure. I'm going to show you what freeze means in a bit, but here's where you can reach it in the menu. Group is also a fairly useful visual feature that I'm going to show you a little bit later, and you can see also keyboard shortcuts. Zoom is for if you want to zoom into your spreadsheet. I like to use Zoom often when I'm doing presentations like this, when I'm in a meeting and sharing a document with a whole bunch of people. Then I'll zoom in because sometimes the screens are so small. If even somebody's using their phone, the screen is so tiny that they're not gonna be able to see if I have it zoomed out to 100. But if you've got a whole bunch of data on your spreadsheet and you're using it, and it's just you, and you want to see, and maybe there's some kind of color coding, and you want to see a bigger picture, you can also zoom out. Oh, let's zoom in. If you zoom out a whole lot more, and you can see a whole bunch more of your spreadsheet. So that's view, full screen. It's self-explanatory. Insert is when you want to put something into your spreadsheet. So here, if you want to insert rows, columns, sheets, if you want to insert a new sheet, Shift F11 is a keyboard shortcut for that. If you want to insert some kind of media, so if you want to insert a chart, a pivot table, which we'll talk about later, an image, a drawing. Google has its own little app for drawing, so you can create whole drawings and put them into a spreadsheet, and they'll just appear as an image over the different cells. Functions we'll talk about in a bit. Create a link, drop downs, smart chips. So there's various things. Here's comments, same thing as we had up here. Format, primarily aesthetic, but if you change the way that the numbers look, then they'll also mean different things, because each of these formats has certain things associated with it, particularly the dates. But mostly these things are just the way the spreadsheet looks. It doesn't usually affect the actual formulas or the way the numbers work. You can even make a sheet right to left, left to right. If you write in Hebrew, you can do right to left. So clear formatting too. So if you've got some formatting that you don't like, you can do clear formatting. Then we've got data. This is where you manipulate the data that you have. This does have to do with the numbers, and it lets you see the numbers differently and also do things with them. I'm a big fan. So we're going to learn about filters, slicers, and I really like the data cleanup feature. I use remove duplicates very, very often. So if you have a whole bunch of information in a range and you want to remove some of that stuff, you have got a bunch of the same stuff, you want to remove it, then data cleanup, remove duplicates, it'll ask you some information. So if you're in a table of data has a header row, it won't touch the header row. Which one do you want to remove? Column E, and remove duplicates, and it'll just straight up remove them for you. There's also data cleanup, trim white space. White space is a little space that you have either after if you copy and paste something after the text in the cell, or if you put a little extra space in between. Trim white space will remove those extra spaces. Sometimes your formulas won't work right if you have extra spaces, and so trim white space is useful. Split text to columns, also a neat feature that I use relatively frequently in Excel. So what you have is, if you have first names, last names, Oleg Kagan, Bob Jones, Stephanie Ramos. And if I wanted to put Oleg and Kagan separately, I'm going to highlight this. So when you highlight a bunch of information, when you have, you can jump ahead just a little bit. When you have columns, A, B, C, D, E, rows. And when you have a bunch of contiguous cells together, that's called a range. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this range. I'm going to go to data and split text to columns. So we want to separate detect automatically. I'm curious to see if it's going to detect automatically. But usually you can do like a space or a comma. Let's do a space. Actually, I'm curious to see if it does it. Okay. Actually, I'm wondering where this, so I see separated. Let's do space. Oh, so it did it. So it wasn't able to detect it automatically, but so it detected it. We set it as a space, and so it's separated into separate cells on the space. Very easy to do. In Excel, it's slightly more complicated, but I think also a little bit more powerful. But this is pretty good. And we can do, if we do custom, if we had like 2 asterisks between, then we can do like if we had And if we had the name separated by 2 asterisks for some reason, then we can use that feature and just say use the custom sort. So we're going to select this range again, make a tool, go to data, and data cleanup, or sorry, split text to columns, and custom, and we're going to do 2 asterisks. There we go. And it just does it. Very nice. If you're done, you just click off and you're finished. So I'm going to delete these. And yeah, we've got tools so you can create forms, spell check, all the kind of useful tools, notifications. So if somebody edits, this is particularly good for notification, for collaborative editing. If somebody edits, you can get a notification. If somebody comments, you get a notification. And then accessibility features. So you can support a screen reader for Braille support. You can do you can use third-party magnifying software. Also useful. Extensions, you can add on, you can create macros, which is you can create a step-by-step activity for the computer to do on its own. So you can record a macro, you can do what you're going to do, and then have the computer do it on its own for a variety of documents. If you do the same thing frequently, macros are useful to do. You can also, Google has a scripting language. So if you are familiar with computer programming a little bit and you want to be able to do some more intense stuff with Google Sheets, you can use apps script. I once wrote a script, and I'm not a programmer or anything, but I wrote a script to create a yearly planner for myself, an annual planner using Google Sheets. So I created all the fields, and I wrote a script to duplicate it and change the week. And so it gave me a whole bunch of sheets. I took the file to Office Depot, they printed it for me, they did spiral bound it and made a nice planner for myself. And I was able to do that programmatically using apps script. And then there's help. Their help is actually very good. So if you're interested in learning about a function, anything on the screen, anything that I'm telling you today for sure, you can go to the help, you can search, or you can just go to help here. So now we got the quick access toolbar. Now, many of the things, actually literally all of the things that are in the quick access toolbar are also in here. And we talked about a lot of them: undo, redo, print. This is the format painter. So format painter takes a piece of formatting. You press the format painter, you highlight it. So let me show you. Hi, my name is Google Sheets. So I put this in D5 through 10. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this bold. I'm going to highlight it yellow, and I'm going to make the text color at high contrast there. And I want to take this format and put it on Google Sheets. And rather than having to go here and do all of this that I just did, especially if you're going to do it a lot, I can use the format painter. Very convenient. So I'm going to highlight this format painter. So it selects it automatically. I had it selected, I had it highlighted, and selects that. And I click on format painter or paint format, and I'm going to click Google Sheets, and it just painted it in the same format. A nice little feature. I don't actually use it that often for my own in my own documents, but it's if you're going to be doing a lot of formatting on your documents, it's fun to do. So I'm going to undo all of that. 100% says zoom again. Here is ways that you can manipulate numbers, and I'm going to show you some of that in a little bit with the personal ledger. We've got fonts, so you can choose a variety of fonts to have within your spreadsheet. I don't recommend fonts like these kind of cursive fonts, very difficult to read when you have a lot of them, and especially if they're small. I recommend just simple fonts like Arial. The size of the font, again, personal preference. I recommend not making them super small because, again, if you have a lot of information in your spreadsheet, really difficult to see. All the usual bold, italics, strike through, text color, fill color, so you can have the background of your cell be any of these colors or custom colors. Borders. Borders are, I don't know about controversial, but everybody has distinct opinions about borders. I'm not a huge fan of using them unless they're necessary for some reason. Borders are really easy to put in. You just highlight the area you want to put the border in, and there you go. You've got some borders. Sometimes they make it easier to see. I prefer using highlighting for that rather than borders. So I'm going to undo that. You can also adjust how the borders look. You can make them thinner. I always prefer to make them a little bit less prominent. So if I want to make the border like that, then it's going to give me a little dotted border. I feel like it looks a little bit more elegant. I'm going to undo that. And you can make it borders a different color. So if you're going to use borders, make them kind of grayish, because you can still see that, but they don't jump out at you. I feel like when you have this, it feels like being in jail, or at least when you've got it like this. You feel like you're in jail. At least I do. Spreadsheet jail, not a good place to be. Merge cells, another neat feature for formatting. If I want to write, if something I'm writing is pretty big, Bob's Big Boy Restaurant. See, that goes through, it's bigger than this one cell. So there's various options here. You can double click between the columns. You see there's the little icon that points in both directions. Double click that, it'll make it bigger. I don't want to do that. I also have the option of doing word wrap, which I'm a little ahead. So I can overflow, which is what it's doing now. I can also do word wrap, which will make the row bigger by itself. I use that one very often. Or if you don't need to do anything in either of these cells, then you can also merge cells. And you see, they just became C and D just became one big cell. And there's various ways to merge. You can merge vertically, merge horizontally. Mostly just an aesthetic feature. I'm going to erase Bob's Big Boy Restaurant. Text rotation, so you can have text in any direction. And I very rarely use this, but it's possible. And if it's all about what you're actually doing. You can make the text diagonal. You can actually even set the degrees. All right, let's make it normal here. And then here's shortcuts to, these are like insert shortcuts and create filters, functions, etc. and more. Right, make your sheet right to left, etc. You can also remove that file menu. How convenient. It's a little bit cleaner here. We got the formula bar, and the formula bar is where you create the formulas, but you can also put them in the cells just straight up. So if I wanted to add a bunch of stuff, I'll show you that later. But here's where you will be able to see the formula. If you click on the cells where you have one, and you see in the cell, you'll actually just see the number, but in the formula bar, you'll see the formula if you've created one. Moving on down, we've got the very bottom, and we're almost onto the personal ledger. Here we're going to be, if you want to add a sheet, click Add Sheet. It'll create a new blank one for you. Delete a sheet, just click Delete. It'll ask you if you're sure. Definitely sure. Here you can see all the sheets. So with 2 sheets, this feature is not that useful. But if you have 20 and they're all around the bottom here, clicking on this, you'll be able to select in the menu. And those little down arrows here, they're misleading because it never goes down. It always goes up. The menu always goes up. You get to duplicate your sheet. You get to copy your sheet to a new spreadsheet. So if you want to put it in a new file, you can do that, or you can move it to a file that already exists or copy it. You can rename it. You can change the color. This one's going to stay white, but I want to change this one. This is our personal ledger. I want to change this one. I can double click it. Personal ledger. That's where the money is. I can change the color to green. Let's do this nice pine green here. As you can see, just to add a little bit of aesthetic flavor to it. You can move it to the left. You can move it to the right by grabbing it. You can protect the sheet in case you don't want anybody to mess with it. Excuse me. And of course, change the color. Okay, so now we're in the personal ledger. And oh, I forgot, there's an explore item thing here, and I'm going to show you that. It's a little bit of like a machine learning AI feature that Google Sheets has had for a little while, that you can ask questions and it'll answer questions based on the data in your spreadsheet. Okay, so now we're in the personal ledger. So we're here. So let's just do a little formatting to it, but let me show you what we have here. So we've got a table here with a date, item name, the category of spending, whether this was a debit, whether you got money coming in. So if your paycheck, loan repayment, credit. So this is where you spent money. No, I should say this is where Skeeter spent money. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to do a little bit of formatting. We're going to highlight all of this. Since these are our headers, we're going to make them bold so they're easier to see and more prominent. You can see that this spreadsheet is a little bit longer than our page. And if we scroll down here, we lose that top menu. Now, these are headers. So sometimes, here it's obvious this is a date, but what is this category, item name? We don't know. So we're going to freeze this top row, which means it's always going to stay at the top of our document. And there's a few ways to do that. Earlier, I showed you view, freeze, and right, currently it's no rows. We can freeze one row, we can freeze two rows up to one row, which is what we have highlighted. We tap that. Now, when we move this down, the header stays up here. And so we can always see that. It's pretty convenient. There's also a way to do that by dragging over here. This I just learned recently, actually, and it's more convenient than going all the way up here. So if we want to, we can also freeze a column. So now if we move to right to left horizontally, we've got the date column that stays. So we're going to move that back. I don't want the date column to be frozen. I just want the header column to be frozen. Ooh, I just lost one. And there we go. Now my date column's back. What I want to do is I want to freeze just the first one. So you see this thick line. That means this top row is frozen. So we've got that. Next, if we want to size columns, I mentioned earlier that it's very easy to do. So we can either do it manually by moving this, by clicking and moving it, or we can do it automatically by double clicking that, and it'll make this column, the size of this column, as big as the largest information in it. And we can also do that by doing it in all of the highlighting the whole thing, and so that we can see all of these. So these are all the other ones are just fine. So here now we can see Jervis Face Back Loan and Doctor's Appointment in full. All right, next we want to move a column. We can also move our column. So if we wanted category to be first, we simply hold our mouse on at the top heading here and then move it over. So we're going to select this like that, and we can move it over so you can see it moves and drop it down here. So now this one becomes column B. We're going to move it back. You see the line appeared, and move it back here. And then if we want to add a column, we can do that by, if we add a column, we can add a column in the middle here. Let's add a column here. We're going to insert column to the left. We can insert column to the right. There we go. So we create a new column here. If we want to delete a column, we can delete this column just right here. I would like to add more information here. So I want to put balance, and you want to put notes. I'm going to make these in bold. And if I wanted to put a note here, like Jervis pays back loan, and I wanted to create a line break within this cell. So if I wanted to put it on this cell on 2 lines, thank you, Jervis. If I want to put, and then I hold Alt, press Enter. Ooh, that's done. So it automatically created 2 lines. Otherwise, if you want a line break and you just press Enter here, it'll move on to the next cell automatically. So if you want to create a new line within the cell, you press Alt, hold Alt, press Enter, and it'll move down to the next line. So now it left that there. So we're going to move that back, and now we'll leave thank you, Jervis, here. All right. So we talked about word wrapping earlier. So if this is a little bigger, if we wanted to wrap, there we go. Now move on to the, it moves on to the next line automatically. If we wanted to change the date, so right here with the dates, I have just the dates, but I want the day. I want to know what day Skeeter spent this money on. So I'm going to highlight this. And I mentioned before, there are various ways to use numbers. So we can, over here in the credit and debit, we can increase the amount of decimal places. We can decrease the amount of decimal places. We can turn it into a percentage if it makes sense. We can make it into currency. So here I have this already as a type of currency, but we're talking about dates here. So we click 1, 2, 3. It opens up a whole bunch more formats that we have. So we have different options. So we want a custom date. So if I want to make it like this, Friday, September, if I want all these dates to be in this format, it'll be able to do that for me. What I want is custom date and time because it's too long. I don't want it to be that long. So I'm going to do is select. So I want it to look kind of like this, but let's see what else is available. Really what I would like is to do, so let's do like that. So if we click this, then we can make it smaller. So I want it to be day as abbreviation. I want it to be shorter. Month, let's do month as without a leading zero. Day without zero. And year, let's do the full year. There we go. So now it's a little bit longer. Let's actually, I want to do something slightly different because I want it to be, I don't want commas in between. This is a comma. I want there to be, some people love hyphens. Some people love the slashes. I like the slashes. I'll put slashes between our days and years and remove the space. So you can format this in all kinds of weird and funky ways. There we go. Now the dates look more or less normal. And I'm going to double click here to make it bigger so we can see the whole day. So we've changed all these dates. So because I highlighted this whole thing, it changed all of them automatically. It did not change the header because Google Sheets is smart enough to know that where it says date here, where this text is, that's not a date. So it doesn't need to format it into day and time and etc. All right, so we've changed the dates. Now we add a line. So let's group, if we wanted to group it by week. So this is something that theoretically can be done automatically, but we don't have that much information here. So if I wanted to group this from, say, Monday through Sunday, I'm going to highlight all of this. I'm going to go to View. I'm going to go to Group. So it's going to group rows 4 through 8. And now I can make it go away. So one way to do that, one thing to do here, if we want to do stuff like that, is let's insert row. Oh, we don't want to insert 5 rows. We just want to insert 1. So I'm going to insert 1 row and say, like, let's move this up. Select this. I want to move it up. Okay, let's move it up to Saturday. So move it up there. And I want to do week 1, for instance. And then I'm going to have to ungroup this because it's grouped too high. View, group, and ungroup. All right. So if I want to group just these right here, Monday through Sunday. And group. So now everything under W1 is grouped, so I can group each of these by weeks if I want to. And so it just makes this disappear, so if it's a little bit easier to see. I don't actually use group that often, but it's a neat feature if you've got a lot of data and you want to organize it. All right, so we've got that. Now, let's get into some more data manipulation, and I'm going to show you how to create a formula. So we want the balance here. So we could do the math by ourselves. It's basic arithmetic, but what if we wanted to calculate automatically? Google Sheets has you covered. So whenever we create a formula, the first thing we always do is put an equal sign, and then we can select cells or we can put some specific numbers. So in this situation, I want to select the cells. So I want to do this cell here, D2 plus E2. I'm going to select that as well. and it'll appear here, D2 and E2, and it'll also appear in the formula bar. And I'm going to press enter, and it'll show up here. So this, of course, this line plus this line equals, there's no credit on this line, so it'll just appear here. So when you put in a formula, Google Sheets is smart, and it thinks, well, do you want to autofill the rest? In this situation, I do not. And the reason is because this is not going to create a running balance for me. This is just going to create adding these lines. So I'm going to put X. So in order to create a running balance, I'm going to create equals that I'm going to do. I'm going to put in parentheses. I'm going to do sum, which is a function. So it's like doing 1 plus 2, but I'm going to do sum of this one, these two here. Actually, let's make this a little easier. I'm going to do sum, and I'm going to select this one and this one, or this one, and then comma, and this one. So we're going to this plus this, and then I'm going to do the cell on top of it. So I'm going to do F2 plus, do it up here, plus the sum of those, and that'll give me the balance. So as you can, and then I don't need to do this for all of these. I can simply select this. You see the little plus appeared, and I'm going to scroll all the way down, and this is going to automatically give me the balance. So as you can see, Skeeter is in the red quite a lot of the month. But how do we know that Skeeter is literally in the red? Well, we can create we can do some conditional formatting. And what conditional formatting means is that if these cells meet certain conditions, which we set, then something else will happen. So, not difficult to do at all, even though it sounds like it's a little complicated. It really isn't. We go to Format, Conditional Formatting, and it'll give us a little box here that'll allow us to define how we want to format it. So the main thing we do is create format rules. So format cells if, and so if we want to do if the number, so we have got if the text, something about the text, something about the date, and then here something about numbers, greater than, less than. So we want to do if the number is less than or equal to, and then the value will be 0. Then we're going to make this text red, text color red, because if your account is below 0, then you're in the red. Technically, we should make this just less than 0. 0 will just be black. Okay, we've got that one. Let's add another rule. So again, this is all selected already. If this number in the cell is greater than 0, we're going to make it fill color, or not fill color, we want the text color black. Done. So these are conditional rules. So what it did here was it took the information. Where did I fill this by accident? So it took our information, and it looked at each of these cells and did something based on the condition. So what we have here is all these are, Skeeter seems to be in the red for most of the month and only black for a little bit of the month. All right, so we can do calculations on all these cells, but if we only need a little bit of calculation, if we only need the sum of some of these, so if we want to see how much this spending all equals, we can highlight it all, and on the bottom right-hand side, it'll automatically calculate the sum for us. So here we've got the sum of this range is negative 4629.90. This is convenient. You can also get the count of how many cells there are there. So there are 9 cells where there are numbers. There are 9 because they're all full. The biggest number is, or the smallest number, so minimum is 756. The biggest number is 231 because it's negative. So negative 231 is higher than 756. The average, so this is, I think, probably the mean average here, 513. And this is something that once you highlight text, even the more you highlight, you get this on the bottom, even if it's just two numbers, it'll automatically calculate it for you down here. Okay, so let's keep going here. So we've got the notes, we've got the balance. I don't like that this is blue. I'm going to change that. Let's reset that. No, I didn't reset it. I think I accidentally put in a condition for it to be. No, I think I put in a condition. I'll have to fix it later. All right, so next thing we want to do is if we wanted to create a series. So similar to the way that the formula was created there, where we create a formula at the top and we're able to move it all the way to the bottom, we can also create a series. So if we, for instance, wanted to, for some reason, create an ID column within this document, let's insert a column to the left. Let's call it ID. And if we wanted the ID to be 5 digits, so we got 00001. The next one is, and we want this all to show. So we want the number to be, we want the number to definitely appear. 1 to 0, no columns. So we want there to be enough spaces. So we're going to do custom number format. And we want the number to be, we want to show all the numbers. So we want it to be dun, 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 dun. There we go. It's going to be 5 digits and they're all going to show. And so if you want it to be 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. Oh, that's not working right. I haven't done that in quite a long time. Nope. So now I made the numbers just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's not this, that was the way to do it, but it's not the way to do it. We can also just do it as text instead of doing it a number. So let's try to just do it as text, plain text. And then we could do 0, 0, 0, 1, and that'll stay the way it's supposed to be. So now let's see if it works. If I do 0, 0, 0, 0, 2 and make that plain text as well, and see if it recognizes the series. It may not because it's text. All right, so that we have these, we're going to highlight both of these and let's see if it works. So you can see we highlighted these and Google Sheets recognized that there was a pattern here and it created the pattern. So if we're going to keep going, it's going to create a little ID for us that increases by 1 with every cell. So we just created a series. It's created a series. All right, so now let me show you some other things really quickly, and then maybe I'll answer some questions for you. So this webinar was scheduled the presentation was scheduled to be till about 12:15, and then I'll have time for questions if you would like me to cover those. What I wanted to show you before we finish, though, is some more interesting ways to look at information and a few functions that are frequently used. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you slicer filters. So filters allow you to filter your information in a variety of ways. I'm going to keep my selection here within this range. I'm going to format data and create a filter. And as you can see, Google Sheets recognized where my information was, my range of data, and it created little filter icons next to each of these columns. What that lets me do is it lets me filter this information. So if I wanted to only filter, if I want to just see the restaurant spending, I click on the little icon, I go to clear, I go to restaurant and I go to OK. And there we go. Now all of the other information is still there, but it's only showing me the restaurant spending. So you can see it here. So you can see how much we spent for restaurants. If we want to see all of them again, we're going to select all, and you got to make sure to click OK. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything. So we can filter on any of these, and we can also filter on multiple categories. So similar to a filter, but in a separate little chip on its own is data slicers. So I'm going to create a little space here. I'm going to create another column here. Insert, insert a row above. So I'm going to create a row. There we go. Make this a little bit bigger. Oh, we got the frozen thing here. I'm going to make this a little bigger. So we got some room here. And I'm going to create a slicer. So a slicer is just a filter that we have separately. So we got this here. This is what a slicer looks like. And on the side here, we can choose. So it selects the range, and we can choose which column. So it filters basically on a column. So we want to do category. And we can filter by category. So we're going to remove clear and then just do restaurant once again and make sure to click OK. And it does essentially the same thing as we just saw. Let's do it. So let's do select all again. Okay. And let's create another one. So with a filter, it usually will create multiple ones. You can filter on multiple things, but this is convenient because this adjusts all the information. If you have a pivot table, which I'll show you in a moment, you can also use these slicers to slice the information. So let's add another slicer. So for this one, I'm going to choose a column, and I'm going to choose credit. All right. And so for here, let's do both of these. Let's do restaurants. So we do restaurant spending. And what if we wanted restaurant spending that was only above $10? What we can do is filter by condition. And similar to what we saw with conditions before, we want it greater than or equal to 10. Oh, did it not do dollars? Greater than or equal to, oh, I see what it should be less than or equal to 10 because it's in the negatives. Let's see if that works. Nope, there it goes. Okay, so there we go. I put -10 because these are in the negatives. So now we can see everything over $10. So we've filtered by both of these. All right. What do we have next? Let me show you a pivot table. So let's get rid of these. Right click, delete slicer, right click, delete slicer. And we can remove this row. And let's do a pivot table. So what is a pivot table? A pivot table lets you manipulate your information to see specific things about it. So pivot tables are very, very powerful, and they let you do that without messing with your raw data here. So the way we get a pivot table is we go to insert, we go to pivot table, and you can either put it in a sheet that already exists, like sheet 1, or we can do it in a new sheet. So let's do it in a new sheet. So let's name this personal ledger pivot. Press enter. So now we can select what we want to see, and it gives us some suggestions here. So average credit for each category, let's do that. And so what it did here was in rows, it added each row is the category. And then in values, which is what it's actually showing us here, the information, it averaged each credit column, which was this column here. Now you notice that some of them don't have anything in the credit column, because some of them are debits. That's why we see these here. These, it can't be divided by 0. So we can actually do something about that by filtering. We could add a filter within the we could add a filter within a pivot table so we don't get this information because it's not useful for us. So we can just leave blanks wherever the debit is blank, it's going to show up. So that removes these, because as you can see over here, where the debit is blank, that's where we have credit, and we don't want to see that. Not for category of spending. So now our pivot table looks as it should. And what if we wanted to change the value to count? So this is the amount of times we spent by each category. Let's say we wanted to see this visually, because some people are more visual learners, or at least like to see information visually. You know, everybody likes dashboards, particularly at work. People like to see things at a glance. So if we wanted to insert a chart for this simple table, all we have to do is go right over here to the right-hand side, insert chart, or we can go to insert chart. And it'll create a chart for us automatically. So it decided that we wanted a pie chart. And so what it did was created a pie chart for us based on the percentage of the amount of times we spent in each category. Now, as you can see, there's a grand total here. And this is not, we really don't need the grand total, because obviously the grand total is all of it together. It's not useful in a pie chart. So we can fix that. Over on the right-hand side is the information about this pie chart. The data range is what data it takes in. So as you can see, it's A1 through B9. That's A1 through B9. We don't want this grand total row here. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click on that again, bring this here, and we're going to do A9, or A8 or B8. So the end is going to be right here, B8. So it's going to take this from up here to down here, the number 2. Press enter, and this changes automatically. So now we can see that we've spent the most at restaurants in terms of the amount of entries per category. 28% of that was at restaurants. We can change the name of the table, percentage of categorized spending. We can change the colors of all these. We can change what these are called, the way these show up. If we want this bigger, we can make it bigger. We can make it bold. So there's a variety of things you can do to make this look different. Now, what's interesting is if something changes in our personal ledger, so say we wanted to add a different item here. So we're going to do 4/30/2023, McDonald's restaurant. And let's say we spent, I don't know, $15 at McDonald's. Get a few cheeseburgers. Should be -15. There we go. And we can automatically create our balance here, automatically create our ID. And this date was created. We just put in the date and it automatically formatted the way we wanted it. So you can see this green line expanded to include the information we added. And let's see if it changed in the actual thing here. So restaurant. So this hasn't been updated yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to, I created a new sheet based on this information. That's really interesting. I didn't actually know you can do that. I double clicked on something I double clicked on this and it created a whole new information for me. Hang on a second. What? So it just separated all of this out for me. Wow, I just learned something new. That's convenient. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to update that. We're going to want to update the information here. So I think this should be age 26. There we go. So now it didn't update automatically, so I had to just update the range by adding row age 26. And when we did that, it added the restaurant 7 for us, and then changed the percentage, so this changed automatically. So that's the way we use pivot tables along with charts. And there are a whole bunch of different kind of charts you can use. So we go to setup here. There's a whole bunch of different charts that are possible. Not all of them work for every type of data, but if you choose the right one for this one, for percentages, pie charts work really nicely. If we also could use, for instance, a column chart. And so this column chart uses the same information displayed slightly differently. We can change the sizes of these. We can change the font, line color. So we can do we can make a lot of, so here's the line thickness. That's the lines over here. So if we wanted to make it really thick, we can do that. I think this is just, is it even, I don't even know if it's showing. We can change the grid lines, the way grid lines look. So major ticks. So this is along the horizontal axis here. So we have all of these options for changing the border. We can make it 3D. So this is something that you'll want to play with when you create your own charts. So create legend. So if we wanted to make a text color yellow, text color yellow, there actually isn't a legend here. So that doesn't even matter. But if we wanted to create text color here, you make it green. Make that green. Now my chart is not very attractive, but there it is. I'm going to leave you to work out the aesthetics. So I'm going to really quickly show you a few popular formulas and then, or a few popular functions, and then we'll get to the questions. So now we're back here. And let's say we wanted to, so I already showed you some, if we wanted to add, we always include the equal sign when that tells Google Sheets and Excel, as a matter of fact, that you're creating a formula. Type in sum. It doesn't actually have to be capitalized. It can be, it's not really case sensitive, but I'm just so used to it being capitals, I just type it in capitals. But when you start inputting after equals, you start inputting the letters of a function. Google Sheets immediately starts to suggest functions for you. And there are a whole bunch. There are, we want to insert functions. As you can see, there are hundreds of functions. They all do different things, useful in various categories. And the nice thing is in the help file, you click learn more. And you can learn what each of these functions do, how they're formatted. And YouTube is a great place to learn how interesting functions work and how you can use them to create functional and beautiful dashboards. This is giving me an error because I didn't finish typing anything. So I'm going to put a parentheses, and now I'm going to put the value 1, value 2. So this is what I want to add up. So let's just do, I'm going to hit Control, just select these. And you can type these manually. You don't have to select them. You can type them manually as well. So the income, Skeeter's income for this month was $4,600. So you can see the formula here. And if you want to, there's also an option under View, Show Formulas. So in this situation, if we want to see what the formulas are on the chart itself, we don't see the numbers though, but we see what the formula is. So this is what the formulas look like here. And this is what our formula looks like here. We want to change it back, we go to Show, and we see the actual result of the formula. And if we want to see what the formula looks like, we just look up at our formula bar. All right, so that's sum. Let me show you average. Average is similar. So if we want to take the average, this is the mean average, is also median average. Type in average and press enter, and gives us the average. If we want the median, so mean is you add all the numbers up and multiply or divide them by the number of numbers. So here there was 3. So we add all these up, divide them by 3. It gives us the average. If we want the median average, it gives us the middle number. So this one is going to be 2171. I think the formula here is median. Sometimes median makes more sense when you're taking averages. So yeah, in this situation, there's one major outlier. So either way, it's almost the same, but the median is 2171. Let me show you count. Count just gives us the amount of information, the amount of cells that are filled up here. So we can do also, there's also count if, which is similar. It's a conditional count. So then it counts the range. So we give the range, and the criterion is, let's say, if we're going to doing a nested, getting a little more complex. We're doing a nested statement. If in logical expression it is these cells. So if E2, E12, I don't know if I can, E12 and E13 greater than 500. Let's see if this will give, if I have to put these on, I may have to put greater than 500 in all of them. Let's do or. Okay, let's put this is greater than 500, is greater than 500. And then the next one, that's logical expression. That if true, let's just put true. False, false. Okay. It's error. It gives me an error because I did too much here. But I think what we can do is number, or the value is number. And then we get E2. So if there's something here that's a letter, then it's gonna give us it's not gonna count it. And we're gonna close that up. Oh, do I get an extra? So now, anyway, count if creates a conditional. I'm not going to spend time figuring this out at this moment. We can look it up later. I can send you a tutorial about how to use count if. All right, one other one I want to show you is today's date. And so if you want today's date in a cell, you put equals now. And that gives us today's date and the time, 5/2/23, 12:30. And if you want the date without the time, you can just do today. That gives you today's date. That's a fun one. Sometimes useful if you don't want to type today's date, if you want to automate something. All right. So that's all I'm going to show you for today. There's a whole bunch of more functions and formulas, but we're at time here, and I really want to be able to answer some questions without keeping people way, way longer than expected. So let me stop sharing for the moment, and let's get into some of these, get into some of the questions. So what I'm doing is I'm looking in the Q&A part of the, because I know there's some people posted in the chat. Let me do the Q&A questions. And if you need to leave and you want to watch this again, this is all, even the Q&A is going to be on YouTube. So you will be able to actually watch this in the future. It'll be posted on our YouTube channel, and you get an email with a link. Okay, so let's get to some of these questions. How is the browser-based access different than Google Sheets app? Browser-based, you get a lot more features. The Google Sheets app is good, but it's pretty small on your phone, and so you don't get as many of the features. So using things like filters and I don't even know if you can use slicers within the Google Sheets app. It would be pretty inconvenient to do that anyway, but you can view this sheets and you can enter stuff in. You can do some basic formatting there. So the difference is just the amount of features. I'm interested to know if Google also offers Word document in addition to Google Sheets. Yes, Google Docs is compatible with the .doc format, .x format, so you could import Microsoft Word files into Google Docs, just like you can import Excel files into Google Sheets. Where was the share? The share was at the top part of the screen. So let me bring back my browser here. The share is up here. So there's two places really. It's up here on the top right-hand side. It's also in File and Share. Share with the public, publish to the web. All right. When you restrict access to your file with anyone who has a link, if you share your file this way with someone, then they turn and share the link with someone new. Will this new person have access to your file too? Yes. So there's always the risk that if you just do share with link, then your file can get spread, far and wide. Now, will most people share your, a planning file for, a party you're having? Probably not, but that is a risk. So if you definitely want to keep it within a certain group of people, then only share it to those people's email address. Now, of course, you can always close down your file later so that that link won't work anymore. But know that if you share the link and make it open to anyone with a link, anyone with a link is going to be able to get into your file. Now, that's also an important reason to make sure that if you don't want people to edit, if you only want people to view your file, then make sure to keep that on view. So if you're over here in file, you want to make sure to keep, if it says anyone with a link, make sure to keep it as viewer as opposed to commenter or editor. How do you find which cell the find and replace is referring to? So I don't remember if this works in Google Sheets, and so I'm going to try it. So if we do find and replace, Control H, let's replace salary with salaries. I don't know why. And we're going to do all sheets. Really, it's only just in this one sheet. Or actually, let's just do in this sheet. And we're going to replace all. It's going to tell you how many, but it's not going to tell you exactly where. It's just going to do it automatically. So we only had salaries in two places on the sheet, here and here. So we can see it at a glance where it replaced it. And let's replace it again. Let's replace salaries with salary. Let's change it back. It's not going to tell you exactly where. Now you could do find, Control F, and then you could find where it says whatever salary in the sheet, and it'll highlight them for you. And you can go to each of them. It'll go to each highlight, and then you can definitely check, and then you could switch to find and replace. But just find and replace won't jump around. It'll just automatically switch it for you. So if you're a little bit worried about some collateral damage, switching something with the same string of letters, then yeah, be careful about using find and replace. Okay. What is smart chips? That's a great question. I do not, or that's not a feature that I've used before, so I don't know, but I know that it was in down here, smart chips. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. So I think what that is that if you've got a, let's say, Kirk Cameron, if you've got a name, I think smart chips might actually find some information for you using Google search. And it's not formatted. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up smart chips myself because it's something that I haven't actually used before. So I wouldn't be able to tell you. And I thought it was something, but it's not what I thought it was. So I'm gonna look it up and I'll put it in the follow-up email. Would you consider doing a future webinar about how to create your own version of the planner you created? I buy planners each year, but would love to create my own. Probably not for the library, but that is not to say that this information isn't already out there. The way I did it was idiosyncratic. It may not be the best way and the most efficient way to do it for everybody, but there are a lot of YouTube channels where people show you how to do this, maybe an easier way than I did without any scripting involved. So I would search YouTube for creating planner, daily planner in Google Sheets, and I'm sure you'll find a way to do it. I haven't done it in a few years, so I'd have to review how to do it myself as well, because it's been a little while. Can you have one master sheet and each sheet be a view of one parameter from the main sheet? Is that a filter? Yes. So you can either do it from your main sheet and you create a filter view, which only selects something specific, and then you can just go back to that view and remove that view as you would. But yeah, that is a filter. So it's actually more like a pivot table where you can see specific information about your main sheet without changing your main sheet. I'm concerned that Google can read all my Gmail. Is Google going to send you ads for Jack in the Box since that is in your spreadsheet? Unlikely, but possible. That's something that you'd have to look in the Google privacy policy about. But yeah, I don't think that Google is going to read everything that's in your Google sheet, because it's an algorithm that does it anyways. It's not like a person that's doing it. But yeah, I don't think it's something you need to be worried about. Oleg, do we enter parentheses around expense amounts? So what I did here was I simply used the accounting format here. So I used the accounting format. I could also use finance, or I can just use regular numbers and use negatives. So it doesn't really matter how one does it. I just did it this way here because, to avoid a whole bunch of minuses. How is this compared to LibreOffice Calc? LibreOffice is free open source software that anybody can use and download, and it's a whole suite of productivity software. It's been a while since I've used LibreOffice Calc. I find that Excel is the most fully featured and most prominent spreadsheet application. Google Sheets is probably next, and then LibreOffice Calc is somewhere after them. I find LibreOffice Calc a little bit clunky to use compared to Google Sheets and Excel. In general, I would say that compared to Excel and LibreOffice Calc is really copying Excel from 10 years ago. Google Sheets is its own thing. It's simplified how to use a bunch of features. And so I think it's more elegant and easier to use if you don't need all those crazy features that Excel or LibreOffice Calc has. So the library would be one sheet and the other sheets would show areas of the library only. So yeah, if you have a pivot table, then you have your main sheet. So the pivot table is drawing information from this, the personal ledger table here. So from this range, and each pivot table can draw from whatever sheet you want or whatever range of information you want. So if you want your pivot table to only draw from, for instance, this part of your range, you can arrange for your pivot table to do that. So your pivot table will pull information from anywhere you desire, as long as there's information there. How do I get the toolbar on my iPad? This toolbar, I would think parts of it will show up automatically within the Google apps, within the Google Sheets on an iPad, but there are a lot of different, it looks different on different mobile devices, so I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly because I've never used Google Sheets on an iPad. But that's a great thing to search within the Google Help file, because then you'll get screenshots and it'll tell you how to do it. How were you drawing the pink lines at the beginning of the presentation? Oh, the pink lines are a Zoom feature. Those are annotations within Zoom. So those were just on top of everything else. I think we're talking about these lines here. That's a Zoom feature, not a Google Sheets feature. Google Sheets does allow drawing, but not over the whole browser window. How do you print without it printing all the rest of the alphabet columns which are blank? I just want to print the rows and columns that have info on them. Great question. And Google Sheets does allow you to do that. So we go to File, Print, and it gives us options. So over here, we print current sheet, we can print workbook, we can print selected sheets. So let's do current sheet. So this actually gives us the whole thing. We can minimize or maximize. So right here, it's a scale, fit to width. So we can fit to height, we can fit to width. Right now it's in landscape, here it's in portrait. So if it's in portrait, it grabs part of it and brings it down here. We don't want that. We want it to fit to width. So here, it'll just print the information that's on the spreadsheet without anything extra. And you can also make different adjustments here. Adjust the format, you can show grid lines or not show grid lines, show notes or not show notes. I don't have any notes on here, so it doesn't change anything. Page order. So here the page order doesn't matter because it all fits, because we've scaled it to fit to the width of the page. And we can align where we want to put this. So if we want to put this vertically at the center of the page, there, that'll be on the center of the page, and you can make notes all around it. And yeah, so you can also change, of course, the paper size and everything. So yeah, you get various options with printing, and so you're not going to print a whole bunch of extraneous stuff. How do you insert more than one row at a time? I've been going to insert and then getting a choice of one row above. What if I want to insert 15 rows below? Great question. You can do that. So what you do is you just select a whole bunch of rows. So if I want to do like 15, let's do select 2 through 17. I'm going to right click. It's going to say insert 16 rows above, insert 16 rows below. Boom, 16 blank rows for our pleasure. I'm going to undo that. But yeah, easy to do. You can also do it from insert. Insert rows, one row above, one below. But yeah, you just select a whole bunch, and you can insert a bunch. Let me bring my Q&A back. Where'd it go? The Q&A disappeared. There it is. All right. In your ledger, every dollar amount should contribute to your grand total. Is there any way to find values that are not referenced directly or indirectly, and hence are not contributing to the grand total? You may be able to search for numbers within the sheet. You might be able to look up numbers, but all of these numbers are contributing to the balance here, and we could do some of all of this as our grand total. So it's suggesting G626%. This is actually not precisely correct, because I think it added something extra here. So if we do select all of this like this, then we get the grand total here. So this is the running balance. Will there be a way to copy what you taught today while typing on our own, of course? So you can follow, I've shared this document, share the link to this document, so you can just copy and paste this. But really making this is relatively trivial once you get started with Google Sheets and play around with it a little bit. There's really nothing too complex here. It's basically a basic table. The only really sort of slight complication is creating the formula here, but you can just copy mine here. There's other ways to do it too. So this is not the only way to create a running balance here. But if you want to, I'm going to add a link to this document in the follow-up email. You could just literally grab this, Control C and Control V, and paste it into your spreadsheet. or you can even, I think you should be able to even do, create a copy, make a copy for within your own Google Drive, and then you can do whatever you want with it. Can the list of functions be arranged so that the most used functions appear at the top of the list, least used at the bottom? That's a good idea, but I don't know how to do that. I don't think that Google Sheets allows that functionality. What is the easiest way to download the file to my computer so I can use it offline? If you go to the cloud here, you can turn on this feature here, and then you should be able to download it. You should be able to use it in your browser. Now, you may be able to have to download another app. I haven't done it in a long time, but this is the first step is, yeah, to go to the cloud here and go to turn on, and then it'll take you through the process of being able to view it offline. On your phone, there's an option where you can download it, and then it can use the app to open it. The app's already on your phone. Is Sheets mainly for math items, or can I use to run names and other info only? You can use numbers, you can use names, you can use colors. Some people use Sheets to make drawings. It's an unusual hobby, but there are ones of people in the world that create really intense art using Microsoft Excel and perhaps Google Sheets. But yeah, you can do names, numbers, you can organize whatever you like using a spreadsheet, as long as it has the usual kind of characters. You can even put images and organize images, but it won't automatically sort them for you. Can we convert a regular Excel into Google Sheet? Yes, it's really easy. You just do File, Import, and then you select the file that you want to import. You grab it from your computer, you grab it from a USB drive. If it's online, you can pull it from online, and it'll convert, and it'll bring the formulas in. And yeah, most of the things that you see in Excel, at least the basic stuff, you can also convert into Google Sheets. Can you work on a sheet online, then share afterwards? Yes, you can download the file and send it to people. You can just do the share and email it to them so they can go straight into the file within their browser. So yeah, definitely sharing is available. Unclear what you mean when you say use browser, not just Google Sheets. So the browser is what we're looking at here. This is the Brave browser. There's the Chrome browser, there's the Firefox. So everybody's using one of those. Internet Explorer, Edge, if you're on Windows. So Google Sheets works within your browser. So that's where we're here. So that's where we see our URL bar here. We see the different tabs here. So it's like a very complex website. Are people able to see change the sheets if you don't have a Google account? That's a good question. I think you can see sheets if you get access. I don't know if you can. I think you probably can change sheets if you don't have a Google account, but I don't remember what that process is like exactly, so you'd have to test that out. So when you share, you do not have to save it as a PDF with the viewer only option, right? Yes, so if you export as a PDF, you don't have to worry about any of that because you get the PDF file and people can't edit the PDF file when you send it to them. And that's the file is only a single copy that they will get. Can we get a link to review the whole presentation? Absolutely. You'll get that by email either later this week or early next week. If you had a lot of Google Sheets, how would you back them up? So you can export them individually. You can download them all. So if you go to your Google Sheets or your Google Drive, you can select them all. So let me actually just go to Google Drive rather than, so I have my drive right here. So they automatically get backed up, of course, on Google servers. If you want to download them, you can put a check mark on them. Sorry, took a second there. It doesn't seem to be working as well as I'd like. So I'm gonna, it doesn't allow me to check. So you can go here. I think I'm gonna need to refresh my Google Drive because it's not working right. I see, it's because it's personal finance because I moved it earlier. So I have this here, I select it and I can select multiple files and I can download them all. and it'll ask me what kind of file I want to save it as. And saving it as an Excel file is probably the easiest, but you have other export options as well. Got a lot of export options. Would you consider offer a training webinar on using free Google Words or Google Docs in the future? Possibly. Yeah, if enough people put that in their post-event survey that they're interested in that, then possibly we can do a in-depth tour of Google Docs in the future. I think it's slightly less complex than Google Sheets, so maybe it'll take us 30 or 45 minutes. If you download a sheet to your desktop or work offline, how do you update the online version? So if you download it to your desktop, then it's not going to be connected to the online version. If you work offline through whatever Google interface it gives you in your browser, when you're connected to the internet, it'll then update the information. Can you do VLOOKUP in Google Sheets? Yes, you can. You can do VLOOKUP. I recommend XLOOKUP just because it's a little bit more, it gives you a little bit more options. But yeah, lookups are definitely available in Google Sheets. Will Zoom training be offered soon? Possibly. We haven't had too many requests for that in the past, but yeah, put it in the post-event survey. And if we get enough requests, we can always either make a video about using Zoom or do a Zoom training live. Any way to find out how many times a cell has been referenced in a formula? That is a good question. And I do not know the answer. There might be a way to find that out, but yeah, I don't know offhand. If you have files in numbers and pages, can you convert them to Google Sheet and Docs and then Sheets and Docs to Excel or Word? Oh, I see. If they're, I think you may be able to export them. I don't know offhand in what file formats, numbers and pages, which are similar apps for Apple users, in what format they export into, but I would think that, yeah, I don't think you may not even need to um, use the intermediary of Google Sheets and Docs. You can just go straight to Excel or Word if you can export them into the format that software reads. But yeah, so the answer is probably yes. I was sent a Google Sheet and was unable to open it. It wants me to log into a Google account. Yeah, that's what I was mentioning earlier. Yeah, Google, it can be a little bit weird about allowing you to access to Google Sheets files without having a Google account. I think that I've been able to look if I get the appropriate access, I am able to look if I'm not logged into Google account, but I wouldn't be surprised if you actually need one to look. And I've got a few, so I may have actually ended up logging in. How safe is it to store the files in the cloud drive since we're using a free Google account? Is it vulnerable to being hacked? So everything is vulnerable to being hacked, given that the person interested in hacking it has infinite resources at their disposal. But how likely is your Google account to get hacked? Probably if you are safe with your passwords, if you have two-factor authentication, then you should be mostly safe. All right, let me look at the chat. So I've covered all of the questions here. Let me look in the chat. See if there's anything that I missed. So some of the questions were repeated. Okay, I think I've covered pretty much all the questions here. Thank you all for having stuck with me. We've covered a lot today. And you've got a bunch of people still here, so much appreciated. If you have a moment after, fill out our post-event survey, and I'm going to post a link to that in the chat. And let us know what you're interested in learning about in the future. Very much appreciated that you're here. Hopefully you can join us for our next program, a Spotlight on Media Careers. Even if you're not interested in media careers, Anisha is entertaining and inspiring. So it'd be something for you to learn and share with people you know. You can learn about her career trajectory and experience with media careers. So that's going to be again next Tuesday at 11 o'clock. And again, much gratitude to all of you for being here and sticking with me on this in-depth tour of Google Sheets. And I will see you next time.